Hi guys, welcome back to yet another fun DIY video here aboard good old Athena. This video is sponsored by the kind folks at Audible. More about those guys later. Let's head up and get out of the rain. In this video, I get to work through some of my pent-up anger from spending $80 on 4 O-rings when I serviced the heat exchanger on my Volvo D240. What better way to get rid of those pesky emotions than to get a little bit destructive? I'm gonna remove this bulkhead here in between the old head and the aft cabin. Also in this video, I'm going to remove most of the cabin sole to inspect the structural members that are hiding beneath it. I know some of them are wet, but hopefully I won't have to remove all of them because that would mean gutting the entire boat. No matter what, the first step is to figure out how bad the situation is. When I say gut the interior of the boat, and let me stress that this is the worst case scenario, that would entail removing the galley, the settee over here on the starboard side, the bulkhead separating the port aft cabin, as well as most of the stuff inside of the port cabin, including the chart table and my electrical installations, and whatever remains of this area over here, meaning mainly this bulkhead right here. If it comes to that, well, it's gonna be okay. I'll just take it nice and slow, one day at a time, and I'll get through it. After rebuilding the deck, gutting the interior and rebuilding it doesn't really seem that scary. No matter what kind of exciting adventures are hiding underneath the cabin sole, Ava and I still want to get rid of this bulkhead. We would like a slightly bigger, more practical head, because while this is fine for vacations and stuff, living aboard a boat, it's not really ideal. It would be nice to have the shower sectioned off so that it's not a wet room. The first step is going to be to get rid of all the stuff I've got stored in here. And just like that, we're basically ready to get started. I'm sure somebody out there in internet land is going, whoa, 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 Mast. How do you know it's okay to remove this bulkhead? And I am certainly not a naval architect, but I do have common sense. If we look up at the bottom of the cabin sole, the span that would be unsupported if I remove this bulkhead is not that big, and it's certainly smaller than other areas of the deck that's not supported. Apologies for the shaky cam, but if we follow that bulkhead below the cabin sole, you'll see that it is not tabbed to the hull. Last but certainly not least, if we take a look at the port aft cabin, you'll see that these two are basically a mirror image of each other, with the exception of this bulkhead, which is not present in the port aft cabin. All of that leads me to firmly believe that I can easily get rid of this without worrying about bracing or otherwise supporting the hull. Before I start frantically sawing away at the bulkhead, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how cramped this aft cabin is. As you can see, there's not a lot of room, and to get into the bottom bunk there is difficult. To get into the top bunk, you would basically have to be a contortionist. The head is usable as a head. I mean, you can get in here, you can turn around, you can sit down. But I've showered in here once and it was kind of awkward. I don't have standing headroom in here. There's not really a lot of room to get to everything. So yeah, all of that put together, I would much rather have a bigger head and just a slightly smaller technical area, which is what the aft cabin is going to get turned into. This job is not going to require a lot of finesse, so I've picked up a new tool. This is a genuine Chinesium grade reciprocating saw. This thing was like $20, so if this survives removing more than that one bulkhead, I will be thoroughly impressed. But this is not a type of tool I would commonly use aboard the boat, so it made sense to just get the cheapest one I could possibly find. So much for that unboxing. I will say for $20, this thing doesn't feel bad. No doubt when I put the spurs to this thing, it's gonna get super loud in here. So out comes my new favorite safety related item, my Honeywell Sync-In Wireless Hearing Protection. And what perchance will I be listening to over the convenient Bluetooth connection? Yep, you guessed it. Audible. Glorious audiobooks from Audible. I've already mentioned Audible in a bunch of my previous videos. In my opinion, it is the easiest and most convenient way of getting your hands on audiobooks. I'm a long-time customer and I love the service, so when I got the chance to have Audible sponsor one of these videos, I jumped at that chance. And why don't I use that chance to show you guys a couple of my favorite sailing-related audiobooks. First up, there is Alone Together by fellow sailor Christian Williams. We get to tag along as he sails his Ericsson 32 from LA to Hawaii and back again. I love the way he writes, and I would recommend this boat to sailors and non-sailors alike. My other recommendation is set in 1834. It's an epic journey from Boston to California, long before the Panama Canal. It's called 2 Years Before the Mast, and my favorite part about that book is the ending, but I won't spoil it for you. I'll include a list in the description for some of my other sailing-related favorites. There is The Boy Behind the Gate, Islands, Oceans and Dreams, Blue Water, Green Skipper, Coyote Lost at Sea. It's a pretty decent-sized list. One of the cool things about Audible is that every month you get 3 titles for free. You get 1 audiobook and 2 Audible originals from a changing list. And their selection is just huge. If you find yourself with a hankering for some audiobooks, go to audible.com/saillife or text saillife to 500 to get 3 months of Audible for just $6.95 a month. That is more than half of the regular price. So be sure to go give yourself the gift of listening. Let's get to some sawing. Ta-da! This should make for a pretty awesome head. So far, the plan is to have a bulkhead here so that the head becomes separate from the technical area, and then have some kind of little access hatch here you can pull off to get into the technical area. The big challenge is going to be to figure out the most efficient layout in the head. As you can see, the hull does curve, so we don't have all of this room available to us, but I'm pretty sure I can come up with something cool. When we get a little further in the process, meaning mainly I've just had a chance to measure everything, it would be awesome to get some feedback from you guys on the ideas I have, and I'll be sure to share those in upcoming videos. It's astonishing the amount of trash taking apart an old head generates. This is going to be a lot of trips to the recycling center with my tiny car, so I think I'm going to spend the rest of the day dealing with all of this, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Good morning, guys. It is the next day, and the boat is all tidied up, which is nice because then we can get to the structural members underneath the cabin sole. But also last night I got very excited about this new head. I started sketching out some ideas. One of them is to take this bulkhead, bring it forward about a foot to right around here. Down here we'll make this curved rather than just a straight line, so something like that. That would put the center of the shower right around here, meaning I would have plenty of standing headroom. But this is still a pretty confined space, and the challenge is definitely going to be to try and squeeze everything in here and not have it be too cramped. So yeah, for me to go any further in a design process, I think I need some accurate measurements. No doubt the easiest and fastest way of grabbing those measurements are going to be with one of the laser doohickeys. Unfortunately, I seem to have misplaced mine. I've ordered a new one, and hopefully that'll get here so that I can grab the measurements before leaving for LA. With the boat all tidied up, it should be relatively easy to get to those much dreaded structural members. So let's not put it off any longer and just see what's up. This is not really a ta-da moment because she looks kind of crusty, but yeah, this is what Athena looks like without the cabin sole. These are roughly 45 millimeters thick. They're constructed out of a plywood core that's wrapped in 3 millimeters of laminate. Looking at the plywood here, this looks basically pristine, but if we turn our attention from the port side to the starboard side, things are looking a little bit worse. Like for instance over here, this is somewhat squishy and it certainly doesn't look pristine. In most modern boats, you'll see the equivalent of this structure made out of fiberglass profiles. And those fiberglass profiles are often hollow. In older boats, you might see some kind of low density foam in there or even cardboard just used to shape the fiberglass while laying it up. On those modern boats, the fiberglass is the actual structural part. But Athena is a much older boat and the laminate is only 3 millimeters thick, which is very, very thin. And there's that hefty plywood core. So I think it's safe to say that here aboard Athena, the structural part is the plywood. And that means Athena's seaworthiness is directly tied to the condition of that plywood, which in turn is why I am concerned. Now, I am, like I said earlier, not a naval architect, but it seems to me like having one of these fail while sailing would be the very definition of a bad day. I've already used my handy dandy moisture meter to check everything, and what this is telling me is that, well, everything is soaking wet. But these things are notoriously tricky to use, and I think the best way for us to check the condition of the plywood is simply just to drill a bunch of holes. This is what came out of that first hole. It's not wet, but it feels more like some kind of mulch rather than plywood shavings. Just to do a quick little comparison, this is what fresh plywood looks like, and this is the stuff that came from that first hole. When I say this is not wet, that's true, but it's not really dry either. It's definitely damp, although looking at that, I don't really think that matters because that clearly is not good news. I've drilled 4 holes in this, one here, one here, one here, and one underneath the cabin sole. This is kind of interesting. So we've got number 1, 2, 3, 4. This is, well, not like plywood. This is kind of similar to that, whereas this is starting to be more like the sample from that fresh piece of plywood. And this last one is, well, basically the same as number 3. So if we start at the forward end here, all the way up here, it's in very bad shape. And then it gets in better shape, and then a little better shape. And back here, it's maybe kind of, sort of, barely serviceable, I think. Well, let's see what this other side looks like. It does seem a little bit discolored. It is slightly damp, but at least this has the texture of plywood. This is from the 3 holes I just drilled, and again, it's better than the first hole, but still this looks questionable to me. Let's try grabbing a sample from this one, the one with the hole where we can see the plywood looks pretty good. Not surprising, that hole has the best looking sample I've seen so far. I've got a selection of samples here from various areas, and to be completely frank, I'm not loving this. I mean, there might be areas that are in worse shape, and there might be areas that are in better shape where I can maybe reuse what's there, but yeah, this kind of blows. But let's just take a quick look at the consequences of what I've just found. So let's say I need to replace everything. Like I said, that means tearing apart the galley, because the galley is situated on top of some of this, as well as the rest of the cabin and the aft cabin and, well, the new head, but that's kind of demolished already, so who cares? The big unknown here is how to actually go about doing this repair, because if I just remove all of this, the hull is going to sag. The laminate in the hull, what I'm standing on here, is only around 10 millimeters thick. And even though this area is only a span of 50 centimeters, I can feel this just barely flexing when I walk on it. Clearly, I will have to support or brace the hull from the outside while doing this repair. And then, well, I'm sure someone is going to suggest I could simply just drill out the wood and fill it up with thickened epoxy or some kind of other wonder drug. But that is not what I want to do. If I'm to do this, then I want to do a proper repair and not some kind of temporary fix. I might even spring for something like Cusa board and replace all of this with that. That way I will know, and any future owners of Athena will know, that this will never ever rot again. As I've said a million times before, I am not an expert, so my next step is going to be to reach out to some shipwrights to get their opinion. That can certainly not hurt, but well, I guess at least it looks like the Joker has finally popped out his ugly mug, and all of this should make for a very fun summer. I've gone ahead and put the boat back together again, and while doing that, I realized that perhaps I should have sprung for a better quality reciprocating saw, because if I am gonna gut the entire boat, then this thing is gonna see an awful lot of action next summer. But it would certainly make for a fun test of a Chinesium grade tool, and there are other upsides to gutting the boat. Ava and I get to fully decide the layout, which I'm sure is going to be fun. And also here in the galley, the knee that's hiding in here where the chain plate attaches, that's not looking so great. So I was going to have to do some kind of a repair in there anyways. And well, now I can just go ahead and replace the entire knee when the galley is no longer there. So yay, upside! The worst part about possibly having to gut the boat is the fact that the galley is, well, basically ready to go. So I wasted a lot of work there, but I mean, rebuilding this should not take that long. What's actually worse than the galley is having to gut the aft cabin, because I put in also a lot of time in here, and I was actually kind of pleased with the way my electrical installations turned out. So yeah, but now I get to potentially have that bit of fun again. I think it's safe to say that tonight is going to be an extra cheese on the pizza kind of night. And of course, any kind of encouraging and kind comments are going to be very much welcome. The stuff I've found today, and whatever the decision end up being in regards to gutting the entire boat and rebuilding or whatever, is going to be a problem for future mess. Right now you're looking at December 8th, 2018 mess, and this mess is actually just kind of glad that Christmas is right around the corner, and in 4 days I'm gonna leave to spend Christmas with Ava, so yeah, life is not that bad. Speaking of my upcoming trip to LA, as soon as the plane touches down in LAX and as soon as I've made it through the pleasure that is immigration, I'm gonna head straight to the t-shirt place and pick up the t-shirts for sailifeshop.com. And then Ava and I are gonna spend the weekend packaging up all of those orders and getting them shipped out to you guys. So provided you live in the US, you should get your order before Christmas, as we've planned all along. When we placed our order at the t-shirt place, we ordered more t-shirts than we would actually need, so we've got a little bit of stock. So if you want to get in on a last second t-shirt for Christmas, now is your chance. This has been a little bit of a roller coaster of a weekend. There's been ups, there's been downs. It's all kind of up in the air right now, but I think it's very exciting, at least for me. Like, I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun rebuilding the boat if I choose to do that. If not, I'm definitely also gonna have a lot of fun rebuilding the head. So no matter what, we should be in for a lot of fun. Before ending this video, I just want to take a second to wish all of you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I will see you next weekend, where I am gonna take a look at all of my favorite tools here aboard the boat, maybe get the head area measured up, and then I think we're gonna end next weekend's video in LA with Ava and I packaging up t-shirts. So yeah, until next weekend, see you.